Alright, what's up, dudes and friends? What is happening? Welcome back to Duty's Daggers. My name is Kevin Duty. Please subscribe to the channel before we continue. And follow me on Instagram, duties_daggers. And please like the video before you forget. So, today we're talking about USA made knives, particularly the USA made knives in my collection that are my favorites. It feels good to own an object that was made completely here in the US. I try to buy USA made knives when I can, but if I'm being honest, there's so many amazing knives made overseas that unless you want to have a very limited collection, um, that's just not a thing these days. Not that I definitely don't mind buying knives from overseas. Brands like Riot, for example, makes incredible knives, um, and I love owning those knives. I'm just saying, there's something special about holding something in your hand, a badass object, and knowing that it was made completely here. It's just cool. So I want to go over these knives, these USA made knives in my collection, and we're gonna check them out one by one. Let us start with this knife right here. This is the Benchmade Shootout. Benchmade knives are made 100% here in the US. Um, and I will admit they're not my favorite knife brand, knife maker, but they do make some pretty cool stuff, and I think this is one of them. I recently got this in for review. I do not own it. I will be sending it along to the next reviewer after I kind of hold it and carry it around for a week and do a review. But I was pleasantly surprised at the shootout here. I knew I wasn't going to love it, and that is true. I do not love it. But it's really not quite as bad as I thought it would be. Let me explain why. It is very light. I do not like plastic knives, and this is a plastic knife. The casing here is all plastic. They call it CF Elite. They call this material CF Elite, which is probably just a fancy word for some tough plastic. This is plastic. You can tell by touching it and feeling it. It is plastic. But it is not quite as light as I thought it would be, so that's good. I like the overall shape of the handle and the blade. We'll deploy it here in a second. Um, well, let's go ahead and deploy it. It fires pretty hard, retracts pretty hard. Definitely not the, strongest springed OTF I've ever felt, but pretty decent. It doesn't, it's not annoyingly weak. It feels pretty good. But as I was saying, the overall kind of blade to handle ratio on this knife, I actually kind of like. My problem with a lot of OTFs is there's this big old handle, and then you slide the switch, and this tiny little blade pops out. You know what I mean? You guys know what I'm talking about. Especially with knives like Deadlock, for example. While they are the most badass OTFs available, they just look a little weird. I think the handles look way too big for the blades. This one in particular, though, I think it's actually pretty good. I think, the blade is kind of wider than a lot of OTFs, and it goes with the handle. I like that it's not a sort of symmetrical, kind of just rectangular handle. It's almost like the handle you would see on just a regular folding knife, um, but with, it's an OTF. So I like it in that regard. It is very comfortable. Um, they have like this little grippy, bolstery area up here, which really doesn't help you if you're holding a knife like this. It's only really good if you're holding it in a pinch grip, which I guess that is useful. I don't, with a big knife like this, I'm not usually holding it like this. I'm usually slicing through something like this, hammer grip, but it's there. There's some kind of milling texture here for a little bit of grip. Of course, your glass breaker on the back, and it has Benchmade's best pocket clip, in my opinion. This is their best clip that I've tried. I really like it, actually. The button here, I can't tell if it's cast aluminum or plastic as well. Can't really tell. It almost honestly feels pretty plasticky. Now, the best part about this is the blade, in my opinion. This is very thin blade stock for an OTF and for a knife in general. And it gets very thin behind the edge. OTFs are not known for being very slicey, you know? When I owned a Microtech Ultratech, I tried to break down cardboard with that thing, and it was not having it. It was, it was having difficulty slicing. So this is great. I think this is a great blade. It's in crew wear, which is nice. I think this Tanto is a pretty useful blade shape. It gets thicker up at the secondary edge, very nice and thin right here. So, while I definitely wouldn't spend what Benchmade wants for this thing, it's way too much money. But if I take that out of it and I just look at this knife and I think, do I like it or not? I don't hate it, but I do not like it enough to spend what Benchmade wants on it. So that's the Benchmade Shootout. I haven't done a full review on this yet, but there will be one coming. Let's move on to another U.S. company, Hogue. This is the Hogue DECA. Now, what's cool about this knife is I have replaced the scales with some OG Goat aluminum scales, which are also totally and completely made here in the U.S. So even though I replaced the scales on this knife, it is still 100% USA made. Very, very cool. This knife comes with polymer handles, basically plastic. Feels like this sort of plastic. And I hated it. I really hated it. So I had to change out the scales. And I like it much, 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 much better now. This is a great knife after you replace the scales. This one's in Magna Cut. Very cool. This is a compound ground Wharncliffe blade. You can see there's a line here where these two kind of bevels intersect. This one's thinner, a little bit thinner back here, while this one gets a little thick up towards the tip for kind of utility style cuts and stuff like that. I think it's a wicked looking blade. I really like it. Very thin blade stock, super thin. This thing is a slicer. Still really light, even with the aluminum scales. Obviously, it was way lighter before. This is still a light knife, though. You can see the USA right on there. On the Hogue, you can see the USA right there. U.S. manufactured. So Hogue is a U.S. company. They make a lot of great knives. I've only ever handled a couple Decas and one of their autos. It was the Ballista, which I actually really liked. And those are the only Hogues that I've owned. I've handled a few more. Actually, I got to handle their new OTF at Blade Show yesterday, and I was really surprised by it. In fact, I was really tempted to buy it. It was really nice. I forget what it's called right off the top of my head. But they make a lot of great knives. They have a few other models that I would like in the collection eventually. But we're talking about the DECA here. This is a great knife. It really is. If you're not bothered by the cheap feeling plastic handles, this is a great, great buy. You're getting Magna Cut, an axis lock, or a bar style lock. For this, this one was on sale, but I think regular price is like around $140, $145. While a bug out, basically the same thing, same basic materials, but not quite as good blade steel, is now $200 or $180. So this is a very, very good buy, especially this Magna Cut one. Really, really good purchase. So I'm excited to carry this thing with its new aluminum scales. I carried it to work, I think 2 or 3 days right after I put the scales on, and really liked it. All right, next, we're going to be talking about Spyderco. This might be the greatest USA manufacturer of knives. As far as like large production knives, it definitely is. Now, not all Spydercos are made in the U.S. A large majority of them are, but they do have factories in Taichung, Taiwan, and I think some in Italy as well. But the majority are made in Golden, Colorado. You can see it says Golden, Colorado, USA, Earth, right there. They make amazing knives. They really make amazing knives. And while some of their models are, a little pricey and are slowly rising in price. They still have very competitive prices for an all USA made knife. It's actually very cool. If you compare Spyderco to a company like Benchmade, Benchmade just recently raised their prices to an almost incomparable level, like where you don't really understand why they could even or would even raise them that high. While Spyderco, yeah, the Shaman I think is a little overpriced for what you're getting. The PM2 has been raised a little bit, but nothing like, for example, the Benchmade Bug Out was 130 and now it's 180. Nothing that drastic. And for what you're getting, their prices are really fair. Not to mention they have the absolute best heat treatment of their steels in the knife game, at least for large production knives. They are the absolute best. If you want a reliable heat treat on your blade steel, Spyderco is the place for it. It is the absolute best. So, keeping that in mind, I really do not have any problem paying Spyderco's prices. This one is the Spyderco Paramilitary 2 in S45VN. This S45VN has some of the best edge retention in my entire collection. It's one of the best in my collection. It's crazy how long this edge lasts. This is still the factory edge. I've had this knife for years. I only just strop it pretty regularly, and it always drops right back to razor sharp. And I haven't had to put a stone to this thing. It's crazy. Another one is the Spyderco Manix 2 in CPM 15V, also made in Golden, Colorado. This is an example of a knife company that makes really good decisions. They wanted to try a new steel, CPM 15V, and they brought in an expert, Mr. Triple B, and he is an expert with the heat treatment of this particular steel and a lot of steels, but this steel in particular, he was kind of on the cutting edge of bringing it out into the public eye and getting the heat treatment protocols all dialed in. They brought him in and said, hey, we want to use 15V, or maybe he proposed that they use 15V, I'm not exactly sure. But regardless, they were using 15V, and they had him, the expert, give them the protocols for the heat treat to make sure that they got it perfect. And boy, did they get it perfect. I mean, I've been carrying this thing at work quite a bit, and I've broken down a bunch of cardboard with it. I've cut rubber tubing. I've cut out templates with it for work, and this edge, it keeps a bite for a really long time. I have had to strop it a few times already, but it strops back pretty quickly. It's crazy. Typically with super hard steels, at least how I've noticed it is with like M390, it holds an edge decently long, and then when you go to strop it, it takes a while to strop back because it's so hard. For some reason, I'm not a metallurgist, but for some reason this 15V, it seems like it drops back really quickly and easily, and then holds that edge for a surprising amount of time. So this is awesome. This is really, really cool. I love this knife. They were really hard to get and still are. As soon as they drop, the scalpers just buy them up and then they list them on eBay for double whatever the price. It's really unfortunate. I have a couple buddies that are just desperately wanting one of these and just cannot make it happen. So it's really unfortunate. I'm really lucky to have snagged one. It was the very last one at Southern Edge, I think it was. I somehow got it. I don't know how, but I'm really lucky. This one has the blue titanium ball cage lock from Flytanium installed and an MXG deep carry clip. Excellent knife. And lastly, we'll just look at one more Spyderco, the Native 5. This one's made in Golden, Colorado as well. Excellent EDC knife. This is a version of the Native 5 that is completely rust proof. It's in their Salt series, meaning it cannot rust. The blade steel is LC200N. All the hardware is either coated or stainless, and we got a titanium clip. So really cool. I carry this in my pocket when I'm getting wet in the rain or otherwise, and it's just so good to not have to worry about getting your knife wet. You can literally drop it in the ocean, and it'll be totally fine. It's a back lock, nice strong lock. This is a slow roller for me. This one's pretty stiff. I can't thumb flick it, but it doesn't bother me. It's pretty satisfying just to slow roll this baby out. I love it. This is a great EDC knife. I wanted to get some other versions. It's just a perfect size for EDC. Medium sized, great choke up spot, perfect ergos, really good blade shape. It's the Native 5, you know. All right, I'm going to just leave one Spyderco out. All right, we got 2 more knives to check out. Let's look at the Hinderer. USA made. Says it right on the blade, right there in big letters, USA, S45VN. This is one of the greatest knives in my collection, my favorite knife, one of my favorite knives in the collection. I wanted this knife for so long, so badly. Finally saved up and made it happen. This is an S45VN, same as the PM2, one of my favorite steels. This is the Spanto blade shape with the choil and flipper tab. It's the Hinderer XM18 3.5 inch. Titanium lock side stonewashed. Blade is stonewashed. And then I added these blue hardware nuts and also this Rick's Special Project filler tab. Fancy dancy. And then this is a real Hinderer textured titanium show side scale. This was pricey. This is very pricey, and they're really hard to get. But somehow I got lucky again and got a textured tie scale. And this was my dream Hinderer, to have a full tie Hinderer. Can't believe I actually have one. The action is insane. I mean, look at this. It's nuts. It's that smooth, and we are absolutely and completely rock solid. No blade movement whatsoever. It's a big, overbuilt, chunky knife. Really thick behind the edge, but it does still slice as I mess it up. There you go. It does still slice. It's a little, impractical, but that's kind of the joy of it. It just feels like an absolute tank. You want to take this into war. This flipper tab kind of doubles as a finger guard, so you just feel really locked in and secure behind that edge. And we also have a roomy finger choil, so if you want to choke up and get closer to the edge for some detail work, you could do that really, really comfortably. This thing is just a beast. There's such a good feeling owning a knife that could just withstand so much abuse, and this is one of them. If I had to take a folding knife into a survival situation, it would probably be, it might be this knife. It's just brutal. I love this thing so much. I'm not gonna keep going on about it. I absolutely love it. And lastly, my most recent USA-made knife purchase, the ProTech Malibu. This knife is absolutely sick. This is the California Custom Knife Show exclusive with the dark green textured aluminum scales. This beautiful, beautiful mosaic button. Look at that thing. Gosh. Incredible detent and action on this thing. This is the Warncliffe version. Stonewash blade in Magna Cut, baby. Oh, yeah. I absolutely love this thing. Number 17 of 50. This is the best button lock, hands down, of any button lock I've ever tried. I've tried a lot of budget button locks and a few kind of mid-range button locks. This beats them so easily. It's just insane. The detent, crisp, super crisp breakaway, perfect flipper tab to get that leverage you need. It's the perfect size, I think, for EDC. Still get a full grip on it, but it's not too big, not too small. Perfect blade shape, like I said, beautiful, beautiful button. great pocket clip. You know, I think ProTech does get a lot of praise for their pocket clips, and I see why, man. They're just perfect. They're not too long, especially this is one of their shorter ones actually. This one in particular is not too long. It's sitting on a little flat pad right there so that the texture doesn't eat up your seam. You know, I love that detail. It's inset into the scale with flat-headed screws. So there's literally, you know, it's literally sitting flat on the scale. You know, this knife is just, it's amazing. It has very little, you know, it has one pivot and one body screw. That is it. Nothing back here. Such a clean look, especially because they didn't choose to put any branding on the blade. On the blade, they put it right up here on the spine. Out of the way, but still visible if you want to see it. I wish more knife companies would do that. It's such a great idea having that up on the spine. It just gives it such a great, clean look. It's just beautiful. So, those are my favorite USA-made knives in the collection. Let me know what your favorite USA-made knife is. You don't need to give a list, but give me like 1 or 2, maybe 3, whatever. Do whatever you want. It's your comment section. You can do whatever you want in there. Thanks for watching, folks. I will see you in the next video. Please don't forget to like the video before you head out, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.